Okay, so I had a good question. Actually, I've been getting this question a lot. So people generally who adopt or convert to the square-to-square swing method, they start hitting the ball farther. And so one of my students today actually called me and he was like, listen, I need to learn how to figure out how far my clubs are going. What's happening with a lot of people is it's kind of exciting at first. You start hitting the ball farther and you're like, oh, that's cool. Well, I was 150. I pulled out my 150 club and flew the green by 20 yards. And we're like, oh, that's awesome. I'm hitting it 20 yards farther. But it's only cool for a little bit because over the green isn't any better than short of the green. So we need to figure out those distances. So I'm really fortunate. I'm at Players Club Golf in Santa Monica, California right now. I've got a launch monitor here. I just finished a lesson with Kendra, and we can see on every single shot, we can see what the launch angle is, we can see what the ball speed is, and ultimately we can see what the distance is. So that helps us a lot. If you can get access to a facility like this that has accurate measurements, that's going to be your best bet. And I would say just hit 5 balls with every other club in your bag, and you'll have really accurate numbers. If you don't have access to something like this, it's pretty tricky, because if you go to a driving range, you're going to be using a driving range ball, which is not designed like a high-level golf ball, so it's got a very like non-sticky, non-friction type cover, so the ball's going to deflect a lot off the club. So your pitching wedge is going to launch higher than it would. It's going to launch higher with a driving range ball than it would with a tour level ball or whatever ball you probably play with. So that's where it gets kind of tricky. You go to the driving range and you hit a shot with this driving range ball and you say, wow, my 7-iron's going 150 right now. That might not be what it goes when you hit a tour level ball. So the driving range isn't the greatest place to practice. If you are on the driving range and you are limited to not being able to use a good ball or the type of ball that you play with, I would say you are going to have to adjust probably about 10% for your distance. It will be longer with your pitching wedge, 9-iron, 8-iron, 7-iron. All of your short irons are actually going to go farther in real life than they do with that range ball. And then when you get to about your 6 or 5-iron and all the woods, it kind of evens out because there's just not as much loft to have that kind of pop-fly effect that you have in your shorter clubs. So ideally, if you're trying to figure out how far the ball's going, number one, find a good facility with a good launch monitor. Use the ball that you play with or a ball that's very similar to what you play with for your practice and hit just 5 balls every other club and you're going to get a really good feel for how far the ball's going now. If you don't have that, again, it's kind of unfortunate and there's not a great fix, but I will say that your shorter clubs with the harder cover ball, like a range ball, are going to launch higher. They're going to go more like a pop fly than a line drive, so they're going to go about 10% shorter than they actually do on the course. So I hope this helps. Jeff, I know I helped you this afternoon with this conversation. For everybody else out there who's hitting the ball farther, awesome, but let's get those numbers dialed in and know exactly how far they go so we can actually start shooting at flag sticks.